Chapter 6. Demands of the Spirit. When Catherine and I discussed names for our first child, I told her how much I admired Sebastian, from the time of Zacharias. He deserved to have a king named after him. Perhaps my middle name influenced my choice. Catherine planned to use her grandfather's name for his second name. Sebastian Guillermo Zacharian. Xavier was troubled when he heard the name. I understood his concern, but my love for Catherine superseded the superstitions associated with the name William. Maximiliano Sebastian Zacharian, Capitulo 86. In the heart of Mount Estoliana, Xavier ran his thumb over the thick, faintly green envelope, and sealed it with traditional beeswax. The parchment-like paper was produced by the artisans in the temple, and he had no plans to change to the mass-produced paper products that had become increasingly available, at the expense of entire forests. It was personally fulfilling to dip a fountain pen in a bottle of Tarsus ink. It was so intrinsically Estolian, that he couldn't imagine foregoing the pleasure. Occasionally they received correspondence hoping to establish diplomatic relations between other nations and Estolia. Xavier's job included responding to every such overture of friendship. When moved by the spirit, he would invite the dignitaries to visit and see Estolia for themselves. His letter was in response to the Lion of Hath, a small country east of Greece. As soon as he read the brief, seemingly impersonal request for the chance to develop a relationship between the two nations, he felt a flood of warmth. The spirit made its own demands. He chose to respond right away and explain that, as honored as he was by the invitation to visit Hath, he could not travel far or comfortably in his wheelchair. Instead, he invited the lion to visit Estolia whenever it was convenient. This letter reminded him of the one he wrote to Leo a week ago. He explained how he met Peter Cathay. He, his twin brother Max, and their cousin Samuel spent nearly 12 years studying and working in London. Shortly before their scheduled return to Estolia, Samuel was crossing the street when a carriage careened out of control, heading directly towards him. Peter, seeing Samuel's danger, dashed across the road to shove him out of the pathway of the carriage, only to be trampled by the horses himself. Xavier, Max, and Samuel all met their respective Kayleys as a result of Peter's brave action. Since then, he and Peter corresponded 2 or 3 times a year. Xavier sprinkled absorbent sand over the address he had written on the envelope, and rang his bell. "See that this letter is ready for the mail plane to take to the mainland," he instructed the acolyte who entered his office. Once alone, Xavier leaned back in his chair and looked at the closed door. There was something else he had to do, something that had been at the back of his mind since he sent the letter to Tenerife. Now that his business correspondence was finished, he could focus inwardly, seeking the will of deity. Except he felt no impetus of the spirit. He looked at his calendar. 2 dates had elaborate decorations. He ran his forefinger over them and frowned. The 21st of July was Leo's 30th birthday. Whenever he thought about his sons, he felt a surge of pride in the men he and Harmony raised. They both had exceptional characters and personalities. 8 days after Leo, Sebastian would celebrate his birthday. The heir apparent. His brother's sons were both fine young men. He couldn't imagine Gregory as last resort. He didn't have the depth of character to take the role seriously. Last resort. He looked at the statue of Zacharias. The mellow stone statue was the most extraordinary ornament in the office of keeper. His wise countenance and beckoning arms had comforted Xavier times without number. But he was not seeking comfort. 2 items adorned the statue. Atop the slightly curly hair on the statue's head was the crown Xavier wore to the most formal occasions. His attention fell to the black sash. That was the task deity had set him. He had to make sure that Gregory understood the role he was to take on. It was time to make him last resort.